Should we be concerned it's on a severed arm?
You heard what that man from the temple said.
He said we would need two. Let me see it.
Hey, welcome back to Screen Crush. I'm Ryan Airy. The third episode of Ms. Marvel revealed a major connection to Shang Chi. When the Jinn find the bangle, we see the 10 rings insignia on the ground of the temple. And this immediately ties the mysterious bangle to the equally mysterious 10 rings. So by now, you probably saw all the theories going around that the bangle might be the MCU's version of the nega-bands from the comics, something we have theorized about in our past videos, including our episode 3 breakdown. And yes, we are going to talk about that in this video as well. However, we have a mind-blowing theory about the bangle and the 10 rings and their origins. And it's so much more than them being a version of the quantum bands or the nega-bands. We think that there might be a much deeper connection here that will reveal the earth-shattering secret history of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
What is it?
A beacon.
They're sending a message.
So first let's go over what we know so far, because some of these details are very elusive. Let's start with the bangle and its connection to the Jinn. Right now it's unclear where the bangle originates from, but it doesn't seem to have arrived from the light dimension. That's the Jinn's home reality.
So it looks like your power isn't coming from the bangle. It's coming from within you. Like the bangle unlocked the superhuman part of you.
And according to Aisha,
He said we would need two.
there is a second bangle somewhere on Earth, meaning that Kamala only has one half of the full set. And by the end of the season, she will combine the two bangles to unlock her full power.
Give me full power.
But sir,
Damn it! I said full power!
But why is the bangle hidden in the same temple that has the 10 ring symbol? Well, we never actually found out where Wenwu found those rings.
有人说他的十环是火山口里捡来的，还有人说是墓穴里盗来的。
The fact that the temple floor is marked by the 10 ring symbol might mean that this could be where Wenwu found them. Before we get to that part, we need to talk about the blue-skinned hand in the room, the same one that wore the bangle.
Should we be concerned it's on a severed arm?
And
This hand likely belongs to a Kree. They are the blue-skinned aliens we met previously in Guardians of the Galaxy, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Captain Marvel. And since Kamala is going to appear in the Marvels, that's the connection right there. We know that the Kree Empire visited Earth many times in the past. The Kree might have possessed the bangle, using it as a weapon to expand their empire. But the Kree who wore the bangle somehow died, and I think that Wenwu killed him. Wenwu is based on the Mandarin from the comics, who found the 10 rings on an alien spaceship. The rings belong to these dragon-like aliens called the McLuhans. And perhaps in the MCU, Wenwu found these rings on a Kree ship. Here's a theory about that. Both the 10 rings and the bangle were in the Kree Empire's possession thousands of years ago. Let's say that there were two Kree that wore the artifacts. Handy wore the bangle and Brainy wore the 10 rings.
I understood that reference.
Brainy arrives on Earth first. His ship crashed, and on that ship, Wenwu found the rings. Years later, Handy came back to Earth searching for Brainy and the rings. Wenwu sensed the bangle with the ring's power, and he confronted Handy. And he was able to kill the Kree because Wenwu is a freaking badass. But he buried Handy with the bangle in the temple. So why not take the bangle for himself? Two reasons. Somehow, Wenwu knew that he couldn't use both the rings and the bangle. There was some force that prevented him, some cosmic law. He didn't give the bangle to one of his men because he didn't trust anyone else with its power. Only he could live forever and have godly powers.
precious.
So he hid the bangle and marked the temple with his symbol. And he did a terrible job hiding the bangle, because that's just the rule when it comes to ancient artifacts in fiction. They never stay hidden. So does that mean that the rings and the bangle both originate from the Kree? Not exactly, but we have a theory that there is something far bigger at play. But first, let's explain the bangle's connection to the Kree. Most fans are speculating that Ms. Marvel's bangle is actually the nega-bands from the comics, and we agree with this theory for the most part. The nega-bands are powerful cosmic artifacts created by the Kree Empire. Whoever wears them is granted cosmic powers, and these bands were awarded to Mar-Vell, who was the first Captain Marvel. The nega-bands come in pairs, and we know that the bangle Kamala has is just one of two. There is another just like it somewhere on Earth. Also, there are multiple nega-bands throughout the universe. However, the nega-bands are not the originals. They are based on the quantum bands.
Do you guys just put the word quantum in front of everything?
While both cosmic bracelets are very similar, the quantum bands are far more powerful. Also, the quantum bands were created by the ancient being Eon. And what do you know, among their many abilities, the quantum bands allow their wearer to create constructs, just like Kamala Khan with the Bangles. Considering that Marvel Studios tends to simplify the comics to work better in their stories, they'll just combine these two bands into the same thing. This means that the Bangle and the 10 rings are a hybrid between the quantum and nega-bands.
Cosmic.
And I don't think that the rings and the Bangle are the same artifact. While they do serve a similar purpose, they are separate from one another, but we'll explain their true purpose in the MCU in just a bit. But before I get into that, we have to explain their origins and the super secret history of the universe. So don't forget about Shang Chi's credit scene where Wong, Carol, and Bruce speculated on the origins of the rings. They are all clueless as to what the rings are and where they come from.
They don't match any artifacts from our codex.
They're not vibranium. Chitauri?
Not like any alien tech I've seen.
All they know is that the rings are very ancient. After Shang activated the full power of the rings, they sent out a beacon to an unknown source. And that source is most likely the beings that created the rings and the Bangle. So did the Kree create them? Nah. I think the Kree were the owners of both artifacts, but they're not their creator. Carol didn't recognize the ring's design, despite the fact that she lived amongst the Kree for years. Also, she spent decades traveling the stars and still had no idea what the rings were. Likewise, I don't believe the rings originate from Ta Lo, and I don't think that the Bangle came from the light dimension of the Jinn. Both are very plausible theories, but as I promised at the start of this video, we've got something a bit more ambitious. So could it be Eon, that guy who created the quantum bands in the comics? Nope, sorry, that guy looks like a tree stump with a wig, so it's doubtful. No, my guess is that the beings that created the 10 rings and the Bangle are in fact...
Drum roll, please. Can anybody guess?
The Celestials. Yes, the beings who are basically gods in the MCU. The Celestials are older than the universe itself, and based on the Eternals, they basically created all of existence. So why would the Celestials create the 10 rings and the Bangle? Well, while they're gods that create suns, they're not omnipotent. They couldn't exterminate the deviants by themselves, which is why they created the Eternals. And this is why they created powerful artifacts that grant their wearers cosmic powers.
Phenomenal cosmic powers!
In the comics, those who are chosen to wear the quantum bands are called protectors of the universe. The same could work for people who are granted the rings and the Bangle. So, time for a secret history lesson. The Celestials created the artifacts and granted them to chosen champions who serve as the protectors of the universe. The original superheroes. These champions traveled the stars and protected the universe billions of years before the Avengers ever assembled. The Celestials can't micromanage the day-to-day in the universe. They are way too busy with their cosmic purpose, creating suns and stuff. A long time ago, in the early stages of the universe, the Celestials created suns, and those birthed galaxies and planets and eventually life. And once life filled the cosmos, the Celestials quickly realized that life can be a real world-ending asshole. The universe is filled with sentient life, and much of that life is hell-bent on conquest, war, and destruction. The Celestials needed to make sure that there was no civilization that got too out of control, that there won't be someone who can threaten their creation. The Celestials created powerful artifacts such as the 10 rings and the Bangle, and they awarded these powerful cosmic tools to select civilizations. And those who were worthy to wield the cosmic tools became the Celestials' champions, the heroes who protected the universe from any type of threat. And they also needed to protect their seed planets, the ones that gave birth to new giant baby Celestials. The Eternals protect those worlds, but mostly just from the deviants. The Eternals are not allowed to interfere in the affairs of these planets.
We don't interfere in their wars.
But cosmic champions that the Celestials chose can do just that. Make sure that the civilizations on those planets won't be wiped out by some overzealous warlord, because the life on those worlds feeds the Celestials growing inside. This could explain why Wen Wu became immortal when using the 10 rings. The artifact grants eternal life, so the champions can do their jobs for millions of years, which is very similar to the Eternals. Now, as to why the Celestials didn't just create another race of robots like the Eternals to be their champions,
Because we didn't think of it?
And this explains the purpose of the beacon that the 10 rings sent out. It was an announcement to their creators, the Celestials, that a new champion had been chosen. Also, it's likely that once the rings were activated, so was the Bangle, which is why Kamala's grandmother sent her the Bangle all of a sudden. This could be the reason why the Kree will attack Earth, which will lead into the Marvels. The Kree Empire might have other artifacts, and now they know the rings and the Bangle are on Earth, and they're coming to collect. The Kree could also be the reason why the champion experiment went wrong. As a great man once said,
"With great power comes the absolute certainty that you'll turn into a right."
Language!
The Celestials handed out extremely powerful tools and expected their champions to serve their purpose. But like the Deviants, some of the champions got corrupted by the cosmic power and started doing the exact thing that they were meant to prevent. And then the dicks of the universe, the Kree Empire, got greedy. They started collecting all of these artifacts so only they would have that power. But karma's a bitch, and the Kree started losing the artifacts, and 2 of them were lost on Earth.
Okay, so if the Celestials created the rings and the bangles, then how come they're so connected to Ta Lo and that light dimension?
Well, that must be because the Celestials are responsible for other dimensions and the other universes as well. They are cosmic gods, after all, existing in all types of creation, sharing a type of hive mind that transcends reality. And the artifacts react to beings from different dimensions. This is sort of confirmed in Ms. Marvel when Bruno says,
So it looks like your power isn't coming from the Bangle. It's coming from within you. Like the Bangle unlocked the superhuman part of you.
meaning Kamala already had the power inside of her since she's half Jinn, and the cosmic energy of the Bangle awakened her powers. Which could explain why Shang Chi and his mother could activate the full power of the rings, while Wenwu, who is a human, could not. So that makes the Celestials' bracelets into a type of cosmic conduit. They awaken and amplify the energy of the champions. Now here's something important about the quantum bands. They can only be used by those who are worthy, sort of like Thor's hammer, but unlike that worthiness clause, most beings can use the bands. However, only the worthy can access their full power. The rings activated fully only when Shang-Chi used them. That's when they sent the beacon. And it's why Kamala can use the Bangle's power while the other Jinn cannot.
We believe your genetics could be the answer to why it is that you can shape the Noor here. Your humanity links you to the matter of this world. It makes your abilities unique.
And what's the common denominator in both cases? They are both human and other dimensional hybrids. Shang's mother comes from Ta Lo while his father is a human, and Kamala's great-grandmother is a Jinn while Aisha's husband was a human. This means that only human hybrids can access the full power of the cosmic artifacts. And this brings us to an even crazier part of our theory. Do you know what the celestial seed looks like? Now look at that. The egg looks familiar. It looks like an infinity stone.
You just blew my mind.
You can't unsee it. The celestial egg looks exactly like an infinity stone. Are the celestials made from infinity stones? Does this mean that all the celestials have infinity stones inside of them? Now we know that the infinity stones were created with the Big Bang. They were 6 singularities from a previous universe, and the celestials predate the universe. It was recently revealed in the comics that the infinity stones originate from the same primordial universe that the celestials come from. In fact, that original reality is filled with countless infinity stones. And it was the Celestials who sent these stones across the universe. So this could explain why the Celestial's egg looks like an infinity stone. They're made from the same cloth. They created the 10 rings and the bangle with the stones. So these cosmic artifacts are powered by the energy of the infinity stones, which explains why the inside of the 10 rings looks kind of like the celestial seed. Though I don't think that there is an infinity stone inside the bracelets. Instead, they are only powered by the stone's energy. This makes Shang-Chi and Ms. Marvel into key players in the universe. Well, I mean, that's until they arrive in the TVA, and then their super powerful bracelets are nothing more than fancy trinkets.
We actually got a lot of those. Yeah, some of the guys use them as paperweights.
But who else in the MCU is embodied with the power of the stones? Captain Marvel. Carol Danvers was exposed to the energy of the Space Stone, and she became a godlike being. And I honestly am not sure what's the deal with Wanda. She had witch power since birth, but it seems like being exposed to the Mind Stone unlocked her full power. And then there's Quicksilver, who also got his powers from the same stone, unless like Wanda gifted him those powers to protect him. I don't know.
I'm so confused.
These are confusing times.
Humans getting their powers from Infinity Stones might be another step in the Celestials' plan to create powerful champions. Beings with godly powers who gain their abilities directly from the stones, unlike the bands, which are required to be worn to access their power. The Celestials engineered life in the universe. They manipulate the DNA of sentient life to evolve in a way that a select few will become their champions. And humanity is one of the races they recognized as the perfect champion material. Earth has a proven track record of superheroes. Maybe that's why the 10 rings in the bangle can only be fully activated by human hybrids, and why humans can gain powers from the Infinity Stones. This is also how Monica Rambeau gets her powers. She's exposed to Wanda's magic and energy, which may or may not have been activated by the Mind Stone. And all of this might come into play in the Marvels, where this secret will finally be revealed. Also, this makes you wonder who else in the universe might get their powers from the stones, or might be in possession of a celestial artifact. But that's our theory, and if any of this is true, that would be freaking awesome. So what do you think about the idea? What are the other cosmic artifacts that might be out there? And which came first, the Infinity Stones or the Celestial Egg? Let me know in the comments below, or you can @ me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash the bell. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy.